Ravenwood Asylum. Even the name sends chills down your spine. This place is a breeding ground for fear, a vortex of despair. It stands on a windswept hilltop overlooking the desolate town of Crestfall. The asylum is a crumbling monument to misery. Its shattered windows are like empty eyes. They stare out at the world with a cold, unsettling gaze. It wasn't always this way. Ravenwood began as a beacon of hope. It was founded in 1889 by a group of well-meaning philanthropists. Their goal was to provide care and treatment for the mentally ill. A noble cause, tragically twisted by time and darkness. The asylum's early years were marked by compassion and progress. But something sinister took root within its walls. The asylum's descent into madness was slow, insidious. It wasn't until the arrival of Dr. William Hawthorne that the true horror began. Hawthorne was a man of contradictions. He was brilliant but ruthless, driven by a thirst for knowledge that bordered on obsession. His arrival in 1908 marked a turning point in Ravenwood's history. Gone were the days of compassionate care. Hawthorne brought with him a new era of experimental treatments. These treatments were as cruel as they were unorthodox. Dr. Hawthorne was a pioneer in his field, but his methods were barbaric. He believed in pushing the boundaries of the human psyche. This often involved subjecting his patients to unimaginable torment. Ice baths, electroshock therapy, and lobotomies became commonplace. The screams of the tortured echoed through the halls. They were a chilling testament to Hawthorne's depravity. The staff, initially hesitant, succumbed to Hawthorne's influence. They became desensitized to the suffering around them. The asylum, once a sanctuary, transformed into a prison. The patients were no longer seen as human beings. They were merely subjects in Hawthorne's twisted experiments. The air grew thick with fear and despair. The weight of their suffering seeped into the very foundation of Ravenwood. Hawthorne's obsession with the human mind knew no bounds. He filled countless journals with his deranged theories and observations. He believed he could unlock the secrets of the soul. But his pursuit of knowledge came at a terrible cost. The patients, stripped of their dignity and sanity, became mere shells of their former selves. They wandered the halls like ghosts, haunted by the horrors inflicted upon them. Years turned into decades. The asylum's dark legacy grew. Stories of mistreatment and abuse began to surface. But Hawthorne's influence was far-reaching. He silenced any dissent with threats and intimidation. The truth remained buried within Ravenwood's walls. The patients, their minds shattered, were unable to tell their stories. Their silence only fueled the growing sense of dread that surrounded the asylum. Whispers of strange occurrences began to circulate. Staff members reported seeing shadowy figures lurking in the corridors. Unexplained noises echoed from the abandoned wings. Objects moved on their own. Doors slammed shut without a breeze. The asylum, it seemed, was haunted by the tormented souls it had imprisoned. The patients, their minds already fractured, were particularly susceptible to the paranormal activity. They spoke of seeing ghosts, hearing voices, and feeling unseen hands touching them. Their delusions became more vivid, more terrifying. They were trapped in a nightmare from which there was no escape. Then, in the winter of 1956, Dr. Hawthorne vanished without a trace. He was last seen entering his office late one evening. He was never seen again. Some say he finally succumbed to his own madness. Others believe he became a victim of the very forces he sought to control. His disappearance remains a mystery to this day. With Hawthorne gone, the asylum's reign of terror finally ended. The remaining staff, their consciences awakened, were horrified by the atrocities they had witnessed and participated in. They closed the asylum's doors forever, hoping to bury the horrors of the past. The patients, many of whom had spent their entire lives within Ravenwood's walls, were transferred to other facilities. But the horrors of Ravenwood refused to stay buried. The asylum stood abandoned, a decaying reminder of the darkness that had festered within. Locals avoided the place, claiming it was cursed. They spoke of strange lights and sounds emanating from the building. Some even claimed to have seen apparitions peering from the windows. Years turned into decades. The stories of Ravenwood Asylum became the stuff of local legend. But the truth, as they say, is often stranger than fiction. The asylum stood silent, a brooding presence on the hilltop. But within its walls, something stirred. The spirits of the tortured, denied peace, lingered. Their anguish echoed through the empty corridors. The silence, once oppressive, was now broken by the sounds of the unseen. Footsteps echoed in the dead of night. Doors creaked open and slammed shut. Disembodied whispers taunted the wind. The air grew heavy with the stench of decay and despair. Ravenwood was no longer just a place of sorrow. It was a breeding ground for paranormal activity. Stories of the asylum's hauntings spread. They attracted the attention of thrill seekers and paranormal investigators alike. They came seeking answers, hoping to uncover the truth behind the legends. But few were prepared for the horrors that awaited them within Ravenwood's walls. Our team at Ghost Adventures had heard the stories. We were drawn to Ravenwood's dark history, compelled to confront the unknown. We arrived on a cold November night, the wind howling like a banshee. The asylum loomed before us, a menacing silhouette against the moonlit sky. We knew we were stepping into something sinister. As we approached the main entrance, a cold shiver ran down my spine. The air grew heavy, charged with an unseen energy. The hairs on the back of my neck stood on end. I could feel the presence of the unseen, watching us, judging us. We stepped across the threshold, and the weight of the asylum's history pressed down on us. The air inside was stagnant, thick with the smell of decay, and something else. Something unworldly. We unloaded our equipment, our hearts pounding with a mixture of fear and anticipation. We were about to enter a realm where the living and the dead collided. We were about to confront the spirits of Ravenwood. We spent days investigating every nook and cranny of the asylum. We recorded EVPs, captured thermal anomalies, and documented countless instances of unexplained phenomena. But it was during an EVP session in Dr. Hawthorne's former office that we encountered the entity that had been drawing us in. As we sat in the darkness, our audio recorder picked up a faint whisper. It was a voice filled with malice and despair. It spoke of unimaginable suffering, of experiments gone wrong, of souls trapped in eternal torment. Then, clear as day, we heard it. "You will never escape me." The temperature in the room plummeted. A cold wind whipped through the air, extinguishing our candles. And then we saw him. A shadowy figure materialized in the corner of the room. It was tall and gaunt, with piercing eyes that seemed to burn with an infernal fire. It was Dr. Hawthorne, his spirit twisted and consumed by the darkness he had unleashed. Panic surged through me. I had encountered countless spirits before, but none had filled me with such primal fear. Hawthorne's presence was overwhelming, suffocating. He was a being of pure malevolence, his rage palpable. We attempted to communicate with him, to reason with him, but our words were met with only silence and a chilling laughter that seemed to claw at the edges of our sanity. We knew we had to act fast. We decided to perform a banishing ritual, hoping to free Hawthorne's spirit and bring peace to the tortured souls trapped within Ravenwood's walls. But as we began the ritual, the energy in the room intensified. Objects flew across the room with violent force. The floor shook beneath our feet. Hawthorne's laughter echoed through the halls, mocking our efforts. The ritual failed. Hawthorne's power was too great. He was bound to this place by his own darkness, his spirit feeding off the suffering he had inflicted. We were outmatched, outgunned, and utterly terrified. We knew we had to escape, to flee from this place before it consumed us all. We ran through the asylum's darkened corridors, the sounds of Hawthorne's rage echoing behind us. We could feel his presence pursuing us, his icy grip tightening around our hearts. We burst out of the main entrance and into the night, gasping for breath, our bodies trembling with terror. We never looked back. We fled from Ravenwood Asylum, our souls forever marked by the horrors we had witnessed. The spirits of the tortured remained trapped within those walls, their cries for help forever lost in the wind. And Dr. Hawthorne, his spirit twisted and consumed by his own darkness, continues his reign of terror. Ravenwood Asylum stands to this day, a chilling reminder of the darkness that can fester in the human heart. It is a place where hope goes to die, where the veil between the living and the dead is thin as a whisper. It is a place to be avoided, lest you too become a prisoner of its eternal night.